Thanks for taking the time to join in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. As always, in our outstanding studios provided for us by First Star Logistics, and we are eternally grateful for that. Facilities here are second to none. First Star Logistics is also first class in every sense of the word. And we have a guest that's first class, Solomon Wilcots. And he was a great player for the Cincinnati Bengals and a few others in the National Football League. He was part of Super Bowl 23 with the Cincinnati Bengals, gone on to a brilliant career in broadcasting, TV, radio, podcasting, whatever the case may be. He knows his football. And boy, I think the biggest thing in this visit with Solomon Wilcots is now we're in mandatory minicamp time. And it's the first time the rookies and veterans are really working together. And, you have to avoid being starstruck. You have to realize that you're there for a reason. Paul Brown told us as rookies, is the game too big for you? Prove to me it's not too big for you. There's no reason you can't be a leader as a rookie. Solomon Wilcots has a bunch of great stories about that, how he and Eric Thomas kind of took the bull by the horns in the early stages of their career, and it paid big dividends. And that's what the young guys with the Cincinnati Bengals, they should kind of take that recommendation and run with it. Because don't wait. Don't wait for an opportunity. Create your opportunity. Good thing to take to whatever your life's work is as well. Solomon Wilcots, really good stuff. As always, we certainly do appreciate you choosing to join us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. As always, coming to you from our outstanding studios they provide. We've got this new building we're just breaking in, the new offices we're just breaking in. It's sweet living right now. And it's sweet living because we got Solomon Wilcots, my guy, my football guy. Great player in the National Football League, as we all know, here in Cincinnati. Tremendous safety for the Cincinnati Bengals, part of Super Bowl 23 with the Cincinnati Bengals, the SWAT team back there on the back end. And then has gone on to a successful, unbelievable broadcast career, television, radio, podcaster extraordinary, he does it all. Solomon Wilcots in the house. And Solly, great to have you as always, my man.
Dave, always good to be on with you too, and thanks for having me.
So Solly, during the mandatory minicamp for veterans and rookies, a big point of emphasis, Darren Simmons bringing everybody together, and they're going over kickoff return because of the big rule change. And it is so funny to look at, to see the kicker like 15, 20 yards behind the cover team, and it's like, if it goes into the end zone on flight, it comes out to the 30. If it hits in the field of play and goes in the end zone for a touchback, comes out to the 20. And then to see the little manipulations they're doing in terms of coverage, who's covering, how they're covering. Man, it's crazy. Not only were you a great safety at the line of scrimmage, but, man, you were an outstanding special teams player for the Cincinnati Bengals as well. What do you think about this new rule, Solly? How do you think it's going to impact the National Football League?
I think it's a true offensive play now. I think it's a threat to, at least, if it doesn't go all the way, it's a big play waiting to happen. And I do believe in the beginning, there's going to be a lot of defensive at the kickoff team that's going to pay the price. So think about this. You could have games now where you get tied up and now you're kicking off. The other team, if you're the receiving team, there's a good chance you can get into field goal range. There's a good chance you can get at least across the 50.
Yeah.
Right? This is a big play waiting to happen. Merrill Hodge and I, we were fortunate enough to work with a company where we were building out a league. It was called Your Call Football. And this was 2019. And it was an R&D, research and development type of league for the NFL, for the USFL. We did a lot of work and met with Oliver Luck and his group and many of the NFL people. And so they've been working. This is something that's been in the works for quite some time because many special teams coaches don't want to see the death of the kickoff play or the kick return play or special teams. There are too many jobs. There are too many opportunities that exist as a result of having special teams. You and I both know it's an organic part of our game.
Right.
I don't know that we ever want to change our game and say, let's just get the kicking out of it. Like, look, we've been playing football the same way for 104, now getting ready to be 105 years. We're not touching the game in that way. We don't want to do that to our game. So this was sort of what we wanted to do, is work on some significant ways that it would bring the excitement back into the game. The kicking would be back into the game. The return game is back. It's an offensive play. Now, the defense is going to have to figure out a way to stop it. But you and I both know whenever you create something like this, I think offense tends to have an advantage immediately, and then the defense tends to catch up on the other end. So kickoff teams better get ready.
It's interesting. I mean, it's a pendulum always, and the pendulum will swing and come back to the middle.
Yeah.
Initially, because of concussion and all the attention, given to concussions, people were like, oh, man, kickoffs. 100 miles an hour this way, big sprint, 40-yard sprint, 100 miles an hour this way. The collisions are huge. A lot of concussions because of kickoffs. So let's minimize that, player safety, and now all of a sudden no returns. So now they say, okay, well, let's get it closer together, minimize the impact with the velocity of the long run and all that sort of thing, potentially bigger bodies covering, maybe not running quite as fast because it's a shorter distance, whatever the case may be. I mean, so the pendulum kind of swings back, but it's not going to be like, oh, kickoff. All right, well, we know it's going to be a touchback. We don't even need to watch the screen. Now there's going to be some excitement back in that bad boy.
Yeah. I think both kickoff, the line where the kickoff team is and where the return team, they're only like 10 yards apart.
Right.
They're not even allowed to move until the ball is caught in play.
Yep.
So once it's caught in play, that's where the play begins for those guys. The kicker's way back there just kicking it, right? And but the collision, they shortened the distance to which players can run before they collide.
Right.
What you're going to get is form of a run play, a pin and pull type of play. You just don't know where the pin and pull is going to take place. In other words, you're going to get guys blocking down and then other guys pulling around for the kick out block.
Right.
Right. And that could occur anywhere along the line because everyone's got to have their foot on the line. Right. And then when he catches it, now go. The play's live. So you got 10 yards apart on a block down, 10 yards apart on a pull, but the defenders can easily close that and they can see it very well. I think they should be able to see it very well because you're 10 yards apart. So it's just a matter of where they wanted to occur at L5, R5, or L4, or L3, L2 as you get closer, closer to the sideline, right? So it's where do you want that pin and pull run play to take place? A guy like Cordero Patterson, who came into this league as a wide receiver. He was a first-round pick with the Minnesota Vikings. And then in Atlanta, he sort of morphed into this running back where he began playing more at a running back. And I always liked him.
Yeah.
I thought he was great at it after the catch. And I think when he played for Zim in Minnesota, they said, yeah, he is great after the catch. Just not have him catch it. Let's just have him run it. So he's with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think he gave him an advantage on that play because he's always been a good kick return guy, but he's big, he's physical, and he's fast. He has short area quickness, but he's got long range speed now. He can hit it when he sees it. Those are the kind of players, big bodied guys that can really sprint. Are sprinters.
Yeah.
That if they pop it, now they can go. I think it's hard to find those guys though, unless they're a receiver. But most wide receivers don't run like running backs. Right. I think Cordero Patterson is the anomaly.
I agree. Boy, so now it was the NFL just had their mandatory minicamp. That was the finishing of OTAs basically, and everybody has to show up unless you're franchise tagged and you don't have to and all those sorts of things. But it's so different. I remember back in the day, back in the 70s, when we had a one minicamp, and it was on a weekend because guys had off-season jobs. I mean, you weren't making this kind of money, nowhere near this kind of money. So, I mean, everybody was working in the off-season, so they didn't want to disturb their job. So it'd be like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you'd ask for a long weekend at your off-season job and come in. and they kind of check on everybody, man, who's out of shape, who's been keeping themselves in shape.
Yeah.
It's come a long way. Obviously now it's NFL's become a year-round thing, and they have the organized team activities, and then the minicamp now finishing that thing off. I do remember when I went to that first minicamp as a rookie, and trying to block Mike Reed, and watching some of these guys that I'd just been watching on TV the whole time. I was kind of starstruck. It's like, wow, man, can't believe I'm here. And then it's like, wake up, you're going to get your butt kicked if you don't get yourself ready here. And what was it like for you when you were in your first, mini camp with veteran players as a rookie? What was it like for you?
Yeah, I remember I was at the University of Colorado. I remember I was going out, and I remember my agent telling me, hey, first impressions make a lasting impression, right? And I had been fortunate because where I grew up in California, Los Angeles, California, I went to high school in Riverside, California. So we knew NFL players, and it was Ronnie Lott was, for me, he was a guy that would talk to us about what to expect when we got to training camp.
Wow.
What the mindset you needed to have going in there, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know that you can get a better reference, than Ronnie Lott, right?
You're right about that.
And his deal was don't back down to anybody. I just loved it. And then I'm thinking, because I asked him, I said, do you know James Brooks? He was like, oh yeah. He said, now you're gonna have to watch out for him. It's like that, because James Brooks, was the kind of guy that he was going to try you as a rookie.
Yep.
James Brooks, he made it his pointed duty to try every rookie. He gonna know what you got, right? And in fact, I wouldn't be surprised, Dave, if the coaching staff didn't go to James and say, hey, what do you think about this guy? Or what do you think? Because James Brooks had a way of, he make you either man up or take your ball and go home, right? He wanted to do, but you could not stand on the fence with James Brooks, man. Yeah. He had a way of finding out about you early,
right?
And so he and I, we had our collisions and we had our moments, but for me, he was always deferential. He was always respectful. I was always respectful. That was the thing. The first day I got there, I remember walking across the locker room, having grown up in Southern California. I was just happy to be on the same team with Anthony Munoz and Max Montoya. Those were my guys. Those were the guys I looked up to. Those were the two guys that for me, it let me know I had arrived, right? It let me know that you were this is a grown man's league. And it wasn't the cornerbacks, wasn't the running backs, it wasn't the quarterback. It was two offensive linemen who I had a lot of respect for, who I watched growing up in Southern California. One, and Anthony went to USC, Max went to UCLA.
Sure.
I watched those guys and I just thought the world of them as people and as players. And so I went over and introduced myself, and I survived. They couldn't have been nicer. They couldn't have been more respectful. And to this day, I still look up to those guys. I mean, all these years later, they're like my big brothers, So, but that's what it was like. I know when we hit the field, I certainly wanted to impress. And I just remember when I left that first mini camp, Sam Weiss and Dick LeBeau, they pulled me in a room and they were like, hey, we know you're an 8th round pick, but don't you go looking at it that way. They told me you're going to have every chance to make this team. They thought that whatever I showed, whatever I did, they thought it reflected much better than what my draft grade had shown. So they did take the time to tell me that. And that was very encouraging. So I left that first mini camp thinking I might be able to stick around here a little bit.
Oh man, that's great stuff. The Mexican connection, man.
That's right.
That's right. Boys, the big fellas up front. Yeah, I remember vividly too. Paul Brown was always his talk to the team always would include at some point in time and multiple points in time. Look, I want you to prepare yourself for your life's work. This is a small part of your working, your working opportunities, and make sure that you get something that you want to do when you're done playing football. And you'd always make sure, what are you doing this offseason? You get, so he said, at least eliminate vocations, young man, at least eliminate them. So I'm marketing at a savings and loan, worked at an advertising agency, substitute teacher, all these different things in the offseason. And it's like, I don't know about any of that stuff. And at least, you kind of found a focus. And I mean, I did think about coaching. Solly, you're a football guy, a football savant. Did you ever think about coaching, Solly?
No, I remember getting a call after I was done playing from Dick LeBeau. He was coaching in Pittsburgh at the time, and I had just finished my career there. And he had just kind of, said, "Hey, I think the world of you as a player. I think you make a great coach. You know the game really well." And I just remember just thinking, I'd already had a job. I worked every year in the off season, just like not a lot of players by the time, but there are a lot of us that still did do off season jobs.
Yeah.
And I was one of them because I didn't trust it, So I always had an off-season job, but I just wanted to go do that. I thought coaching would just be so much when it came to being a family man. I didn't have kids while I was playing. All my kids were born afterwards, but I was starting a family. I wanted to make sure I was home. I remember telling Coach LeBeau that you guys are in here hours before we get here. And you're here hours after we leave. I just don't know that I could take time away from the family to do that. And he knew I always wanted to work in broadcast television. And so I ended up leaving my job at the insurance firm to go start in local TV. So, but it was worth my while because I learned a lot in business.
Yeah.
I remember going to the Queen City Club downtown where I went with my bosses to the Green, and I saw across the room, I see Paul Brown, Mike Brown over there having their dinner. I knew I was in the right place. You know what I'm saying? So if you're having dinner at the Queen City Club at lunch during a work hour day during the week, and you're in that group, you're pretty much going in the right direction. So I felt I had a plan. I wanted to stick to that plan. But there are days where I wish I would have went into coaching, but I always tell myself that when I was calling games for CBS, I looked at that job like I was coaching our viewers, that I was coaching the viewing audience in a much more granular way, not as complicated as we get with players, but to be able to explain the game, I think, and simplify it for fans, I don't think is no easy thing. And so that's kind of what I wanted to do and got to do it for a very long time.
And Solly, we're almost on exact similar paths. I mean, a couple of college coaches called, you want to coach, man, I think you'd be a really good offensive line coach. The Bengals, like, hey, what do you think about being an offensive line coach? And same thing, I'm like, man, I've got a young family. I'm never going to be home. I mean, what's kind of the next thing? Well, broadcasting in some way, shape, or form. It is kind of like coaching in a much different level, obviously nowhere near as sophisticated as breaking down the tape and teaching the players and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, it was almost the exact same reason, the exact same decision. It's crazy, but
and you never had to move your family, right?
Right.
That's the other thing. Not all of us get to be like our guy Jim Anderson, Coach Anderson. He coached maybe a couple of other stops before he got to Cincinnati, but then after that, 28 years, I think it was.
Right.
With the Cincinnati Bengals, that's, you and I know, that's rare. And so I think the that transit mindset of having to move maybe every 3 to 5, that did not appeal to me.
Right. I hear that. So Solly, the minicamp, I mean, how significant do you think minicamp is? It's like it's the last thing before they take their big break, before training camp. There has been installation. Now the coaches are going to didn't like this kind of concept as much as I thought, but boy, we can expand this one. A lot of that goes on, after minicamp, before training camp. What else happens? I mean, how important do you think minicamp is, Solly?
I think it's really important. First of all, I think it's the things you don't see that I think are most important. And that's the stuff you're getting done at minicamp and your organized team activities. And that is your team chemistry, the team bonding, if you will. How are you bonding as a team? How are you coming together as a team? You got guys who are rookies coming in for the first time and they're watching veterans interact with one another.
Right.
Are they having petty differences or fights? Are they talking about one another in a way that is not conducive to a healthy work environment? Or are they really a band of brothers who really respect one another? What are they doing in their off time? Or I always had a rookie staying with me. Usually by the time we got to training camp or out of training camp, I would say, hey man, don't spend your money on that. I got an extra room. You can stay with me. I have an extra car. You can use my car if you need to get around. That's the stuff that veterans should be doing for younger players while they're in town. It should not be this vast wasteland of trying to get to know your way around a city that you've never been to before. And when it comes to purchasing and whether you're getting an apartment, a condo, or a home, there are things you're going to need and services and products you're going to need. And people are going to need to make introductions for you. And so I was always that kind of veteran. I had guys who did that for me. Guys like Reggie Williams was phenomenal in that way. He knew everybody in the town. So,
city council.
He's city councilman. And Anthony and Max were great. When I went to go buy a car, I talked to them. I'm thinking about buying a car. Who should I call? Yeah. And those guys always had information for me that was so very helpful. And so I think that's where you come together as a team. And I think Minicamp is where that happened. There's still some team building and training camp in the summer, but I think initially that stuff, really earning the coach's trust.
Yeah.
Because they're taking you into a meeting room all day. They're going over the stuff. Then you're going out on the field and you're not in pads, but you're running through the things that they taught you. And you've got to be able to learn the language of the playbook, learn the philosophy. How do we play? To me, there's an aggressive way of playing. And there's a more schematic way of playing, even though both sort of interact. Teams, when you have to execute fundamentals and technique, some coaches, you got to know what they want. And you got to know how they like it. And that's how you better do it, right? You better be able to execute in a way that's complementary to your teammates, but is impressive for your coaches. And you and I both know it's not easy to do. You got to be able to please. You're trying to win over these teammates. That's important. Just impressing the coaches and not the teammate, it's not good enough. You got to win them over too. But you better impress the coaches because you won't be out on the field. So I think all of that is at work. And then how you come to work. Are you out there a little bit early? Are you getting ready? Do they have to tell you twice before you do the drill?
Right.
When you get in the drill, you screwing it up and go back to the end of the line. Do it again. If you're frustrating teammates, coaches, think about you break the huddle with Joe Burrow and you don't know where to line up. You don't think he's getting frustrated? You got to earn his trust, but you also have to earn the trust of the coaches. And so if you're busting coverages in the secondary, the other 10 guys are looking at you like, I don't know where we drafted him. So all of that is taking place during minicamps. I don't care if it's voluntary, involuntary. Every time you come to work and you go to a meeting and then you come out of that meeting and they ask you to, demonstrate what we just showed you, you better be able to do it. That's a really key strategic way of earning faith within a team and within a system. And now you get to become part of it.
Solly, I think, man, you hit on the hugest intangible there is, leadership. And you were an unquestioned leader of that Super Bowl 23 team and that whole era that you played in. But the good thing about that group and then our Super Bowl 16 team that I was a part of in the era that I played in, it's like you don't want to have just one offensive, one defensive captain. You want to have multiples. You want to have leaders everywhere. You want to have a couple of leaders in every position group and keep pollinating until there are more leaders, man. The more leaders that you can bring up and groom a little bit and get ready to do their thing. That's what it's all about. Everybody rowing the boat in the same direction and rowing hard, man,
Yeah. That is so very important. And you don't have to have the captain next to your name.
Right.
My rookie year, I didn't think I was going to play, but I was going to work my tail off on special teams to make it in. I knew I had to impress. Before this rookie year is over, man, because that second year ain't promised, right? So, but my very good friend, he had it a little bit tougher than me, and that was Eric Thomas. We met at the combine. We were roommates at the scouting combine. We shake hands leaving Indianapolis thinking we would never see each other again, except in passing. We ended up getting drafted to the same team, the Bengals. So then we end up rooming together. And I remember that second game, he gets beat by Jerry Rice for a game-winning touchdown.
I remember that.
And we were up. That was a game we should have won.
Yep.
He gets beat. And I remember after that, we go on strike. So now, I mean, you're talking, I would not want to be in his position where that lingers, right? You don't get that bad taste out of your mouth.
Yeah.
I remember talking to him after the strike, and even once we came back, I said, hey, man, tell you something. That's Jerry Rice.
Yeah.
Don't worry about getting beat by Jerry Rice.
Right.
I said, but what you can't let that happen again. You can't give up a game-winning touchdown again. And I said, here's what we're going to do. Every day we come into this building, you and I, we're going to work our tails off every single day. We're going to make them play us. I said, we're going to make so many plays in practice. We're going to make them play us. By the end of the year, we're going to be like, oh, you two, get in there. They're going to want to see what we can do. I said, I guarantee you, if we practice that way, they're going to put us in there just to pass the test. Sure enough, I think we ended up starting the last game of the year against Houston. The run and shoot, Warren Moon.
Yep.
I mean, so that's if you listen. I think I think if you're honest, young rookie DBs ain't clamoring to get in that game.
Right.
But Dave, you know what? We had worked so hard for the opportunity. I cherished the opportunity to play in that game. And that's what we're talking about, leadership in an unspoken way.
Yeah.
Eric pushed me. I pushed him. Dick LeBeau just sat back and watched it because he finally said, you know what, you damn guy. We were making so many plays every day in practice. I remember Bill Urbanek. I remember Dick Seltzer. They loved us because we were like the kind of rookies that just we just had a way about ourselves.
Yeah.
We didn't ask for permission. We just needed to do it. We were respectful in every way, but we were about the work. We really were. And just that quiet way of going about it got us on the field in that last game. I ended up having my first career interception against Warren Moon that day. Eric made plays all over the place. He's knocking down balls back. I mean, he's covering some of the Pro Bowl wide receivers. And we just had this great game. I remember getting on the bus afterwards. Dick LeBeau said to both of us, he said, when you guys come in here next year, you're playing every snap in the preseason. He said, I'm going to play you till your tongues hang out. And that was what we wanted to hear. And the next year, remember the next year we had 5 preseason games. But that was the Super Bowl run. That was the year, and he and Eric and I became starters. But if you would ask me where that started, I would tell you it started during our rookie year. It didn't start when we showed up for training camp year number 2. It literally started the year before because of the way that we pushed each other and the way that we were intentionally about our work, trying to impress, trying to make plays, and getting ourselves ready to play. That's what leadership is, because you can't lead yourself to do the difficult things, right, all the time consistently. How are you going to lead someone else? So that's, when you talk about the unsung leadership, I think of it in that way.
Absolutely. I mean, and you guys were impressive. And it's like, then the veteran play, look at these young bucks, man. All of a sudden, now you're lifting the whole boat. I mean, look at these young bucks, man. We got to start going, and yeah, you're right. I mean, leadership, man, it crops up in a lot of different ways. And there's no question you were a leader from day one, Solly. And I've probably taken too long. I know you've got commitments, and I know I probably abused the opportunity here, but Solly, you're so good, man. And you got so much to say and say it so well. And I appreciate the time that you give us. And you're the best, my man.
I will say this, because I like this rookie class. I had a chance to interview Amarius Mims. What a brightful, energetic young man. Josh Newton, another guy who you could care less about what round he was drafted in. This dude is coming to play. He's coming to make a name for himself. You could see that. He's got that swagger, that kind of confidence. Veteran players who really do love the game, you can't help but love rookies who show up ready to do the work. Not do this, but guys who are just ready to play, guys who are just ready to bring it, because that energizes veteran guys, right? We've been around a while. It's this is routine, been through this mini camp stuff, been through this training camp stuff. Let's just get to the game. But then these rookies come in with a whole new attitude. They have a way of breathing life into teams. The ones who do it the right way, and the ones who know how to help win games. They breathe life into veteran players. They breathe life into the building. That's where your real energy comes from. And you know that, Dave. When young players who take it serious, who have respect for veterans, have respect for the process, and want to win and willing to do anything that it takes to win, that's when you know your team is cooking.
No question. And I go back to my rookie year. Paul Brown was the head coach, and I can remember him saying, "Is the game too big for you? Prove to me that it's not. Prove to me that it's not, young man. Prove to me that it's not." And I'll never forget that. I mean, he was like, "You're right. Challenge the young guys, man. That's what it's all about." So
that's right.
Ollie, great stuff, man. Appreciate the heck out of you.
All the best, Dave. Take care. Bye-bye.
You do the same. Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.